Okay, welcome to Property Pursuits. I'm going to start now. This is our monthly market update where Sandy and I share what we're seeing work. We take the news, whatever's come out in the last month, and we break it down to how it's translating into real life trends that we're noticing with buyers and sellers in the real estate market. Mainly in the Reno area, but sometimes some of these trends translate nationwide. And every month we have a guest, at least every month lately. And this month is Val. So Val, tell us about yourself.
She smiled at me like,
that's just great. Sure, I'd love to do nothing else than to tell you about myself.
Yeah, that's my least favorite thing. I am an investor in real estate and then got my license in 21. And I've been serving clients in the Reno area since.
What do you like about real estate investing?
I like that you can be so creative. And I like that it creates wealth for people who might not be able to create it in another way. It's hard to save yourself to becoming a millionaire. And in other ways, you have to have money to invest, where with real estate, you can borrow it.
It is pretty cool that you could like buy something for $700,000 and only put 5% down or 3% down.
Yeah.
What do you like about being a realtor?
I like guiding people through the process. It's like an onboarding, and it's a long enough process that I get to know them really well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, plus it's so personal. Especially like in recent months, you've been having this whole conversation and starting this dialogue about the reluctant investor. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from for you personally?
Well, I was the reluctant investor when I got started. My husband was like, we should do this. We should get started and buy a real estate investment. And that was really scary to me. So I had to decide, am I going to be the brakes to this movement forward, or am I going to learn and figure it out alongside him and support his process? And then I saw that it worked, and that the fears I had were maybe from TV or maybe unfounded, just not having clarity.
Yeah.
And so then I started looking at other people and saying, okay, it might be the partner who's the reluctant investor, but as I've been in the industry, I think it's a lot of others in the industry. I hear from realtors and lenders who say, I want to own a property, I want to invest, and there's something holding them back.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's a big jump, right? To buy real estate and to like trust the process. Mm-hmm. But I want to shake people all the time, because once you're on the other side, you're like, just do it. Yeah. Like, it's so great over here. Mm-hmm. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
What was it for you that helped you like get on board with your husband?
Well, I mean, to start, I trust him. He hasn't given me a reason to be like, oh, this would be a terrible money idea. And then I think I just had to get on board with learning with him so that I could run the numbers just as well as he can. And that's something, like, especially for other realtors, we don't learn that in our training to get a license. You have to go above and beyond to understand how to run the numbers for an investment and look at it through a different lens than an owner-occupant might. So I think as people are willing to put in the time to do the learning, and then, you know, you're not going to have confidence until you see a little bit of success. So you have to commit to something in order to then build the confidence. You have to commit, do the thing, and then figure it out.
You have to write the check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then make sure it doesn't bounce.
Yeah.
I feel like this about crypto because I haven't done it. And I was so busy when crypto became a big thing. And so I can always relate. I'm trying to learn to fix my face when people are talking to me so they can't tell what I'm thinking, you know? Just fix your face. And one of the best ways to fix your face is to relate to someone. And sometimes it's hard, especially today, in today's day and age, to relate to the other side on something. But if you can find a way to relate, then it's really helpful. And the way I always try to relate to people, because like I said, I'm not gonna be able to help them if I just want to shake them and be like, no, it's so good over here.
Let me tell you.
They're not really gonna receive information that well. Yeah. So the thing I can relate is like, well, they might understand crypto and own a bunch of it, and I'm really behind the curve and haven't figured it out. Like everybody has their thing that they don't feel confident on or know. And like you said, all it would take is me diving in and learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like for me, there's never going to be complete information, right? You don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so we just have to make you coined this phrase, I think, but we have to make the best decisions we have with the information we have now. We'll continue making good decisions later. But I think if you can like identify what the fear is and then talk yourself through it, it can bring a lot of clarity.
Yeah. Identify what could be your superpower, your slice of the market, and then start there.
Yeah. Yeah, like what strategy makes sense for you?
Yeah, what strategy, or I mean, as a realtor, you can negotiate with your commission if you're buying for yourself. That's a great place to start.
Definitely.
I think that if you're a realtor or lender who is not confident in this space, you have to figure it out because that's unacceptable. By the way, guys, you don't have to wait every month for property pursuits to keep in touch with us. We put out a lot of content all month long to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. We try to break down the headlines for you and just offer a ton of free, completely no strings attached information on Sandy and my Instagram. Val is on Instagram too, and we've put her handle up on the screen so you can follow her. It's just literally free value of information. Now let's dive into some politics.
Woohoo!
Can Trump really lower interest rates? Because he said he wants them lower. And there's the Fed, right, who's in charge of the Fed funds rate, but they're supposed to be neutral in a political climate. They're supposed to be uninfluenced. And Powell's a unique character because Trump appointed him, but now clearly doesn't like him. But he did what he thought was right the whole Biden administration. He didn't really cater to him either. So maybe he's got a bit of a spine. It looked like he did last week because the Fed paused on cutting or hiking, because even despite that Trump had been really public with what he wanted them to do all week, they paused because inflation is still sticky, probably because of people using buy now, pay later. $8 billion in November and December alone were spent on buy now, pay later programs. $8 billion. Anyways, that's a different point. But I'm just saying consumer spending is a big part of why inflation is so sticky. It's not the politicians' fault, actually. It's the problem.
We're not pointing fingers.
One thing, though, even if Trump didn't influence the Fed, and even if the Fed didn't take any action and paused all year, something really cool that could happen, I don't think it's likely to happen, but I just like to talk about it because it'd be so awesome, would be they get rid of loan level price adjustments. Because this is what happened. I actually talked with Trevor a lot from Address Income when it happened, but I think it was 21 or 22 where they put in that huge pricing hit for non-owner occupied, and then we saw second homes and investment property rates skyrocket. That was a loan level price adjustment.
Second homes get worse than investment properties, which was weird.
It was terrible. Then they put in a loan level price adjustment. What was it that was so politicized last year that Biden did that people were like,
They changed it for credit scores.
And they were like, if you have a worse credit score, you're going to get a better interest rate now.
Yeah.
And people got really upset about it, but it wasn't how it actually worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that if you were putting less down, you had shitty credit, you were going to get a better.
It was just that you were going to get a less bad rate.
They were closing how big the loan level price adjustment was.
Yeah.
Instead of closing them, why don't we just get rid of most of them? Because yes, I do think you should get a better interest rate if you have a better credit score. But I don't think it should be so drastic. When rates are already so high, we're penalizing people another 100 basis points or 150 basis points if they're not owner occupying, if they have a credit score below 720, if they're putting 5% down. All of these loan level price adjustments stack on top of each other, and it really sucks for your interest rate. That would be a really good way to reduce rates. I want to make this bigger.
Yeah, but don't you think that there should be...
Here, I can do it.
Okay. Don't you think that there should be worse interest rates on investment properties? And I'm saying this as an investor, but right, if the goal is to prioritize home ownership for
First-time
people to
homebuyers?
live in, then there should be that difference there. I mean, right? In my
But
opinion.
how does hurting the investor help the first-time homebuyer? Like, how do they influence each other? Because they're the limited inventory. You're saying if I discourage investors from buying them,
There will be less competition for the primary occupants.
maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I would love rates to get better too, especially, as I'm shopping for investment properties, but
If Sandy could pick and choose which loan level adjustments apply and which ones don't,
then that'd be great.
yeah, I would actually probably be okay living in that world. Trump last time did pressure the Fed. Who knows if they actually responded or not? But he was very vocal during the pandemic that he wanted interest rates at 0 and he wanted to hold them there for a long time. And then when people started to get concerned about inflation, he was very vocal that it was transitory. It was nothing to worry about. It was just going to pass on through, which it didn't. So having low interest rates, and I say this as someone who benefited a ton from having low interest rates. I mean, those were amazing years for our careers. We helped so many people buy homes who wouldn't have gotten into it otherwise. We helped reduce mortgage payments for people so they could invest in their businesses. It was great. There was a lot of good that came from very low interest rates. Yeah. There was a lot of bad that came too. And we're still dealing with it. When interest rates were held at 0 for so long, it wasn't all good news. And I think that's something people should be aware of when they are constantly saying we want lower interest rates, we want lower interest rates. Yes, we do for affordability, but we don't want them to be too low for too long. There has to be a balance. But how much power, what we promised to get into today, to really get into it, was can he do this? Does he hold the power to reduce interest rates? And technically, no, he doesn't. He can't, from the White House, say, I want lower interest rates, and we have lower interest rates. But there's things that his base is saying he will take action on that would help with lowering interest rates, which one is we've talked about before when we were during the campaign. We talked about how one of his platform things was underutilized federal lands and opening them up for development. Or there's a problem with interest rates right now in that it comes down to where people are choosing to invest their money. When the demand for mortgage bonds is low, interest rates are higher. National debt impacts the way people invest. And right now, people are freaked out about the national debt and what's going to happen with it. So they're not buying as much in mortgage bonds and they're choosing different ways to invest their money. If they were less concerned about the national debt, the demand for mortgage bonds might increase. If we sold federal land to help offset the national debt, that could increase the demand for mortgage bonds. But my question, and I don't know if you guys know, but who would we sell the underutilized federal lands to?
Builders?
Well, but nobody wants to live out there.
A lot of it isn't buildable. Yeah. There might, at least in our area, there might not be even enough water, or the slope of the mountains makes it difficult, or it is fire-prone land that wouldn't be smart to build on.
Because a lot of Nevada is federal land.
Yes, and it's beautiful, and it's great for camping, but not for building a house.
Okay, well, that was one of his ideas. Another is leasing government-owned infrastructure to private operators. I think this is something that Dodge will get after, which is another piece of the puzzle. If they reduce the government debt by improving efficiency and eliminating things that aren't efficient, then that could help reduce the national debt, which could improve the demand for mortgage bonds. But something really pertinent that has been suggested is privatizing Freddie and Fannie.
Are we ready to get into that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We have to skip a few slides then. Oh, no, you moved it. Good job. Okay. So, yeah, has been a lot of talk about privatizing Fannie and Freddie. So a little background on them. These are technically like companies. So Fannie and Freddie are government-sponsored enterprises that essentially facilitate mortgages. So they provide liquidity to the mortgage market to keep it going by buying mortgages. So when we originate a mortgage, Fannie and Freddie buy it. Then they're packaging it into like a lump, like a mortgage-backed security, and then selling it to investors. So that's kind of like the life cycle of a mortgage. So that's really helpful in keeping rates low because banks don't have to hold these on their balance sheets. They are able to refresh, their funds and keep originating more mortgages, which helps people buy homes. So Interestingly, these are public companies, so people have currently like shares in Fannie and Freddie, but they're under conservatorship by the government, by the FHFA. So they're tightly controlled, and that's kind of the pro con. What does it look like privatizing or not? So
Let me back up a bit. So Fannie and Freddie, we underwrite every mortgage that's conventional to either Fannie or Freddie's guides. Mm-hmm. So they do everything Sandy said, but they're also very involved in the day-to-day of processing a mortgage because they have an automated underwriting system. There's LP for Freddie and there's DU for Fannie, and every loan that's going through that's not FHA, VA, or jumbo or non-QM, but the majority of loans are conventional. Even though I just listed a lot of other options, the majority of loans are conventional loans that are either going to go Fannie or Freddie, and they're going to be underwritten in that way. They're going to be locked in that way, and then everything Sandy explained of what happens when the loan closes happens.
Yes, exactly. So they basically put the guidelines out for credit scores and the LLPAs and those things that we were talking about. So, so the FHFA is the conservator, and you can think of this as HUD is another one that oversees the FHA loan program, but the FHFA oversees Fannie and Freddie, and so they're implementing guidelines for making sure that low income areas and low income borrowers are still being served. So they have mandates for that kind of thing too. So you can think of it like Britney Spears, and then her her dad is the guardian or the conservator, right? So Fannie and Freddie are like Britney Spears, and they have to send all their money to the FHFA, the Treasury.
This is so good.
It was really interesting.
I understand it better already.
I'm trying to fix my face.
I got so invested in Brittany that I understand now.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So Fannie and Freddie are Brittany, and the FHFA is her dad.
Got it.
So, anyway, so this wasn't actually always the case. So prior to 2008, Fannie and Freddie were actually private. So this is when they were originating risky loans, and it caused the housing bubble. The Treasury had to step in and infuse funds because it was that too big to fail kind of thing. So they had a bailout, and that is now why they are under the FHFA. So the conversation now is, do we privatize it or not? So currently it stands you could actually invest in Fannie and Freddie by buying shares in Fannie and Freddie. You don't have a lot of say in that, right? Because it's tightly controlled by the government. So if we were to privatize, that would mean reduced government oversight. So we could see changes to low income plans. We could see a lot of changes to guidelines. And then also right now, the government backs these mortgage-backed securities when they're sold as investments. So the government or the investor will still get paid if someone defaults on their mortgage. That likely would go away if there was a privatization. So that would make investing in mortgage bonds riskier, probably driving up interest rates.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. There would be additional private capital. So we'd probably see a lot more private lenders come in, start originating more loans. I mean, we have tons of that now, but I think that would expand quite a bit more. So the arguments kind of for doing that is that it could reduce taxpayer risk, right? If the government's not insuring mortgages, that's now a liability that the government is no longer having to watch out for. And it could encourage more competition in the mortgage market, and less government intervention in, housing financing. So could be a good thing, we could see a lot of low income programs disappear. The arguments against are, those potential higher interest rates, possible reduced access to affordable housing, and then, uncertainty about how the mortgage market might react. So it's going to be interesting. As I was researching this, there was a lot of information on what if we did some sort of a hybrid method where we reduced government liability but still had some oversight to make sure that things kind of kept moving as is. That was kind of interesting. Got a little complicated, but anyway.
Well, you kind of pass the risk onto the individual borrower then, rather than the collective taxpayer.
onto the individual bar. Well, with probably
They have to
higher
know what
interest
it is
rates.
they're signing up for.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it going to adjust in 5 years and turn into 27% interest?
It becomes kind of similar to the CFPB, which got frozen yesterday.
That sounds right.
Dodge or Trump's? Who did it? Who froze the CFPB?
Besant.
Okay, so Scott, right? Scott Bassett
Yep.
froze the CFPB. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also came after the housing crash to regulate mortgage companies that were handing out risky mortgages like candy. But I haven't always thought the highest of them because, none of the laws that passed with Dodd-Frank or the regulations that went into place truly protected the consumer anymore. It just made a mortgage more expensive for them because the mortgage companies had to hire lobbyists to interpret the laws. And it still came back to you have to find a mortgage advisor you trust to break it all down for you and put you in the right loan program. So I think the same thing would happen whether Fannie or Fredy are privatized or not. It's still going to come down to who you choose to guide you through the process as your realtor and your lender, and if they're going to truly show you all your options and make it all clear for you so you end up in the right loan.
So true. There are a lot of expensive loan options you could get today with Fannie and Freddie.
And I think it is important for the CFPB news to be on everyone's radar because we recently talked a lot about like medical collections not affecting that. That's all on pause now. It all goes, who knows what happens if the CFPB is not allowed to take any actions.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, if it does get privatized and we start having a lot more private investment, I think there will be probably a shift away from the 30-year mortgage to more adjustable rates and things like that. A big reason that we have the 30-year is like the cornerstone. Other countries don't really have a 30-year fixed. But we do, and that's in big part due to Fannie and Freddie. But investors don't typically like being like, oh yeah, I'll lend you $500,000 at 2% for 30 years. Like, but yeah, we can do that.
That's true. I love the 30-year fixed.
It's just so good.
I don't want it to go away.
Every time someone's like, I want a 15, I'm like, no, you don't.
Are you ready to make the magic happen with the animations on the next slides?
Yeah. Ooh. Can't wait to watch the replay.
It's not really magic, but we always talk about whether it's a buyer or seller's market, right? Like, who has the upper hand right now? And for the last 18 months, Sandy and I will debate about it, and we're like, ugh, I really think it's hard to say because Sandy will come in on a Monday and her clients got all the credits they wanted and price reductions, and I'm like, all my clients were in multiple offer situations. Like, what are we in the same place? Is it the same reality? But it really has come, and a lot of it has to do with whether or not the realtor has priced the property appropriately, right? And what the seller's motivation is. Some sellers are very motivated, other sellers are very stubborn. But what we found is I don't think buyers or seller markets exist anymore. I think it's over. I think in today's day and age of real estate, every house is going to be its own market. It's just the way it's going to be. We used to define it that if it was less than 6 months inventory, it was a seller's market. They had the upper hand. But we haven't seen 6 months inventory on the market in years. And I've had buyers negotiate amazing deals. If it's more than 6 months inventory, it's supposed to be a buyer's market. Right? Because of the housing shortage, I think what the definition of a buyer versus seller's market is going to have to change. Because we're unlikely to ever see 6 months inventory sitting on the market again until builders catch up.
Yeah, which is going to be who knows when.
Yeah, we've been underbuilding for so long.
Yeah, that's so far out.
So I think if you are trying to time the market to sell for when you would have an upper hand, good luck. If you're trying to time the market to buy for when buyers would have an upper hand, also good luck. You have to just look for the deals.
Do you still feel like, though, spring is a good time to list? Does that
still ring true?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even though we've had a mild winter, I still think our weather is favorable. You can actually see the roof if there's not snow on it. So our area will always have more action happening in the spring and summer when the weather's better.
So that would be a good time in theory for sellers. So that, does that age-old advice, and then you can get more of a deal as a buyer and it's hard because, like you said, we had a mild winter, but
some of it's not to do with weather. Some of it's to do with, if a seller's trying to offload a property in that tax year, you're going to get a better deal in December. Some of it has to do with school starting. People want to move and be in the new school district before August.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's always weather related timing wise, but every year in my career, they've said that the holidays will be slow, and they weren't until this year. This year, I thought the holidays were kind of slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think getting a deal is all about who you're partnering with. If your lender is calling to vouch for you, that makes a difference, and you both do that. If your agent is willing to call and find out what are the motivations of the seller, I mean, we got 8 offers on a property recently. 8.
That's a lot.
It was fun, but only 2 people called to ask what do the sellers need.
Really? Wow.
I don't understand.
I thought that was kind of common practice.
Don't you
but
think
maybe that's
so?
'cause I
Yeah.
work with like good realtors.
I thought we wanted to talk about the strategies we're seeing work right now. Oh, we're incorporating it into our success stories.
Yeah, so our success story. So I had a client purchase a home at the end of 2023 at literally like peak interest rates. They closed at 7.99. And now it's been a year, just over a year. We're doing a refinance to lower the payment $371 per month.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's real money.
And in just over that year, they've gained $50,000 in equity from, we got the appraisal back recently. So part of that was they did some upgrades in the backyard, but also that's market appreciation in 1 year. So it's a huge win, and they didn't try and like time the market because obviously they got literally the worst interest rate that
we've seen in our careers.
Yeah, but they got the home they wanted in the neighborhood they wanted. They've been living there for a year with their family. They just got a puppy, and now their mortgage payment's getting $371 less. So
send them my condolences on the puppy.
okay.
It gets
So
better.
the moral
Please,
is
getting better.
don't time the market. Just buy when it makes sense for you personally to buy.
To expand on what Val was saying, I had a client that she needed to make a contingent offer because she's going through a divorce, and the listing agent called me. We were contingent and we were asking for a credit, and she's like, "Do you really need this credit? My seller wants to know." And I was like, "Well, I'll leave that between you and the buyer's agent, but I'd like the credit because they need it to get the monthly payment where they want it to be." And she's like, "You're also contingent." And I was like, "But I also have a very serious buyer." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I don't know if you know about fallout recently, but it's pretty high. People are canceling for any reason, right?"
Mm-hmm.
I've said this before on the podcast. It's like buying real estate right now is like buying a designer bag. You don't want to buy it if it's got scuffs on it because it's expensive and your terms are costly. And you're like, people are looking for ways out of a deal all the time now. They're looking for reasons to cancel.
Yep.
And so I explained to the listing agent, I was like, I have a serious buyer here who needs to close to maintain stability for her kids. She doesn't want to move twice. So I think that you should take the offer because when it comes to inspections, she won't be looking to cancel over the doorknobs twisting the wrong direction. She needs to maintain stability. And they took our offer because they liked that answer, because the other offer wasn't contingent, but they didn't seem as serious. So I think to win in this market, the strategy I'm seeing that works the best for buyers isn't as specific as sometimes the strategies we give you. Sometimes we talk about whether you should do a temporary buy down or a permanent buy down based on what interest rates are doing right now. We talk about non-QM financing. We talk about DSCR loans. A lot of times we share with you whatever niche program we're seeing work the best. Right now, what I'm seeing work the best is just having some gumption. Like, just try. I had another client who lost on a beautiful, like, fixer-upper house to a cash buyer because the seller felt more comfortable that maybe the house won't clear inspections. I was like, I just have a feeling we're going to get this still. Let's stay in a backup position. And the cash buyer canceled, and we're closing in 2 weeks. So I think work with the right team, like Val was saying, but also don't discredit yourself or say, I'm not going to succeed in this market, or this won't work, or I don't have good odds. Just have some gumption and get out there and do it, because you could get things shoved through right now that you might not think are possible. Go, Val. Say what you were going to say.
You don't really have the negotiating power until you're in contract. So I think, use that gumption, get in contract, and then see what you can get. So
what Val's saying is a really good point that I think a lot of people don't understand. When you get a house off the market as a buyer, there's a big transfer of power that's happened where the seller is in a vulnerable position because they've taken their house off the market and all they have really is your earnest money deposit, but they don't even really have that because you are protected to get that back because of contingency periods. So what she's saying is like, you'll have the ability still to negotiate based on inspections, based on appraisal. And that's where you can also put together a really good deal.
Yep.
Good point, Val. Mortgage and Mimosas is coming up next week. There's 9 spots left. If you're a realtor in Reno, you should grab your spot for this. Not Val. You can if you want. You can help Sandy. Sandy is going to go over the anatomy of an interest rate and what really makes it up. So she'll expand on the conversation on low-level price adjustments and market data and mortgage bonds and the demand for them. It's going to be really interesting, and she's really good at this kind of stuff. And then I want to share with you guys how you could use time management, not to get more done necessarily. A lot of people fight with me about my time management system and time blocking and all of this. But what I found is really the reason that you need to do this is because it frees up mental space. You spend a lot of time contemplating decisions in your brain and spinning around in mental cul-de-sacs. So I have these 2 areas of expertise. I'm a ninja with my time, and I'm really good at exiting a mental cul-de-sac. I'm going to put them both together so that you can learn how to be a better executor and close 2 to 3 more escrows per month for the rest of the year. But there's only 9 spots left, so hurry up. Now, if you're not a realtor and you're not local and you want to join us for Future is Female, you should fly in and come because this is open to everyone and it's happening in Reno on March 6th. We're pivoting this time and we're empowering women in wellness just this month.
And I can't wait.
Because I do think that women need to be financially empowered, but I also want us to take better care of ourselves. And I think we put ourselves last a lot. And so we're going to have a whole conversation about fitness, about why as women we really need community, why it's actually more important to us than the other gender, the others. We're going to talk about perimenopause and menopause and hormones and how they're not your vice. You can actually use them as a superpower. And Dr. Bio is joining us, which I think is like unreal because she's a big fucking deal. But she's going to talk. She became really famous talking about advocating for yourself inside of a doctor's office to get the care you really need. But now, watching her career, I want to ask her, like, how do you advocate to just build life on your terms? Like, that you could do whatever you want. You don't have to follow anyone's rules.
Yeah.
But if you had any questions specific today about your financing or your real estate strategy and you want to ask us or ask Val, use the QR code, make an appointment with us. We can connect you with Val. We're also happy to give you our time to give you more personalized advice. And we'll see you next month.